Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all my fellow restaurateurs and strategic vendors and stakeholders. The past few years have been a tough time for all of us or the Indian F&B operators. While there has been a lot of entry of many global players, which may be seen as a positive step towards the globalization and the growth of the Indian industry, but the cost of operations has posed a continuous challenge for operators like us to keep our necks above water. The past year experienced an unprecedented growth in monetary values of all F&B inputs, with fruit, vegetables, and meat leading the pack throughout the year. India is probably the second largest producer of food and vegetables, and it has the potential of being the largest, backed by its food and agricultural sector. In the coming years, a lot of us will have to walk a tightrope in terms of balancing high input costs while generating additional revenues in otherwise a low growth economy. We will have to improvise on sales and marketing strategies to attract new customers, at the same time indulge in doing smart menu engineering, efficient use of real estate, smart hiring, strict F&B controls to cushion the high input costs. While on the other hand, Indian food service operators continue to focus and innovate by dishing out food closer to home, with changing lifestyles, this is becoming increasingly difficult for us to keep on improvising and creating new kind of foods. The Indian housewives seems to have lesser and lesser time, and all the traditional dishes which seems to be coming out of our kitchens earlier can now mostly be only enjoyed in some of our restaurants. In this process, restaurants create a feeling of déjà vu and earn the loyalty of their patrons. The other interesting offshoot of this increasing interest in local cuisine is the growth of regional cuisines at the national level. The Gujarati thali, the Rajasthani thali, the Punjabi thali can now and is a part of the country and a lot of our restaurant chains. A lot of the sweet brands have established themselves in this space, in the QSR space. Across the world, the popularity of Indian food is growing. As you all know, Indian cuisine is now the #1 cuisine in the UK. And therefore, companies such as ours are looking at going abroad. And I think Ritu mentioned about domestic chains and how we need to standardize to go abroad, and I think for franchising and to go and therefore go abroad, which is very, very important. So the diaspora of the captive customer is changing. Therefore, the Indian companies are also changing, are also looking at international waters. If you look at, I'll give you a little bit of background of our company. The Lite Bite Foods is one of probably the largest F&B retail companies in the country. We have about 12 brands under the umbrella. We cover about 1.5 million square feet of retail space in malls, in high streets, in airports, in multiplexes, in office complexes, now metros, and hopefully next will be railways. We have a strategic real estate and business partnership with people like Dial and Mile, which are the airport operators. And we also have strategic relationships with Subway and Eat Out Group, which is one of the largest airport concessionaires. We have awarded brands like Punjab Grill, Asia 7, Fresco, and Zambar, which have been awarded over time to time. We also have a QSR element to our business, which is got to with brands like Baker Street, Street Foods by Punjab Grill, Pino's, to name the same. Our focus now is going towards getting more and more into travel retail because the footfalls there are much more consistent as compared to malls and high street, and on the overseas expansion. As we talked about, the popularity of Indian food all over the world is growing, So we are also looking at expanding us, and we already have an operation in Singapore, but we have now signed up in Abu Dhabi and in the US. As you know, each of these markets are challenging, and we have to really develop the Indian food according to the local tastes, like all the European or American chains have to do when they come here. So that has to be a challenge, so it can't be just the Indian food fitting over there. So my presentation is going to have 3 parts. I'm just going to give you a small overview of the industry. How is it to invest in the food industry in India, and a couple of trends which I see, my company sees going forward in the years to come. So it's about an overview. The QSR and the CDR, or quick service and casual dining restaurant, account for about 74% of the market, and the cafes make about 12% of the market. The total market, organized and unorganized, is close to 48 billion US dollars, 247,000 crores. The unorganized sector, which is the big one, is about 70%, and it's also growing at a similar pace. So the challenge for us restaurateurs is to try and move the unorganized into the organized sector. I think Ritu made a point about the amount of times people eat out, and that has changed from 4 times a month to 8 times a month. You'll be surprised that places like Singapore is 41 times a month. So you can imagine this large industry, unorganized, which is also there, adding to organized, and if we change the number of times we eat out, what this industry can grow into. I think today, the reason for the evolution of restaurant chain can be summarized into urbanization, introduction of global change, changing lifestyle, which I just talked about, greater exposure, a rise in income for the middle classes and the upper middle classes, and restaurants becoming more of a social point to meet and hang out. I talked about a little bit about the international expansion, and I think that is going to be a trend which a lot of us will follow, and that's got to do with a lot of standardization for all of us to move outside into franchising, into international markets. And I think a little bit more on the industry, on the QSR, if I talk about, it has been a very good growth story in India from the medium to long term. It's always shown a double-digit growth. Originally, this concept was on the go. Food evolved from QSR, which provided consumers with busy schedules, a time-efficient eat-out option, a cheaper option. The kiosk format has evolved primarily to cater to on-the-move and busy consumers who are far away from the major target segment. This concept is basically available in shopping malls, railway stations, metros, airports, and they do very well in office complexes too. The casual dining format is a relatively fresh and rapidly growing concept due to the advent of malls. It's positioned, between the fast food and the fine dining. It's a fast casual kind of a segment. This segment is today estimated at about 4,000 crores and is projected to grow at a CAGR of about 18% to reach 9,000 crores in the year 2018. The casual dine market is today led by domestic players, which are largely region specific. I think some of us are now trying to be more Indian players. And there are also, of course, some international players present in this field with the advent of chilies and so on. The third market, which I talked about, which is about 12% of the entire market, is the cafe or the coffee market. India is actually predominantly a nation of tea drinkers. Earlier, many coffee chains were struggling to keep business afloat. But thankfully now, coffee demand is surging in India due to local chains, but more importantly, the international chain. Starbucks has come into the market, like Ritu had also mentioned, and I think will change the face of drinking coffee in India. And I think the Indian coffee chains need to go a step further to compete with things like Costa and Starbucks. Over the past 2 decades, many cafe chains have been trying to pursue more and more people to visit, hang out, socialize in these outlets, and by the way, drink coffee. So the market is likely to grow about from 20 billion rupees or 2000 to about 16.4 billion rupees at the end of next year. So this is how I said the market is split up. Fine dining is about only 4% right now. And another emerging category which we see is these pubs and microbreweries which are coming through as the laws are changing in India. So a little bit about the investments and how friendly the investments in the Indian food industry. The CII has estimated that the food processing sector has the potential to attract 33 billion of investment in 10 years and generate employment for around 9 million people. Opportunities in the food and grocery retail in India are immense, given that it constitutes about 69% of India's total retail market. That's not all. The country also boasts of several other factors, all adding up to make India an attractive investment destination. Because there are youngest working population in the world is in India, between the ages of 14 and 45. Growing consumer base, diversified consumer preferences, better purchasing power, globalization and awareness. No wonder the various restaurant chains in India are turning hot picks for PE investors. We all know that the flavor of the month for PEs is to be in the restaurant space. With eating out market in India being more than about 250,000 crores, the organized branded food service industry is expected to grow 20 to 25% in the near future. So in terms of the trends to expect, I think we can look at home delivery as a big segment. Social media is something which we all need to think about and have a strategy around, because it is growing very, very well, and the consumers which we are talking to are mostly on social media. Things to increase your sale in terms of combos and add-on. Healthy offerings is becoming a very big point in the Indian consumers' lifestyle. I talked about microbreweries, and I will talk more about microbreweries and how that growth is happening. There are different innovative food presentations which are happening. Ritu talked about the cyber hub and how people rather go there than go to Connaught Place to eat, because it's much easier. It's a whole experience. I'll talk about a little bit about that. And of course, the sustainability part. So on the home delivery front, the F&B industry, as you know, is going through a tough time due to the slowing down the economy, leading to challenges on demand. So it has become imperative for people like us, restaurants like us, to maximize our business, and a way to go about that is to do a lot of home delivery. And I think the Domino's whole model has been on home delivery. So the times which you have which you don't have customers, you can use for home delivery for other innovative way to increase the business. So these days people are very, very prone to placing orders online and capitalizing this trend. A lot of restaurants are yielding good returns by registering themselves on online ordering sites like Food Panda, Tasty Khana, Just Eat are some of the ones, and also some of the other local websites which are following suit. So the ease of communication has spurred demand for takeaway and delivery channels, and has in turn encouraged operators to trigger formats that are purely focused on maximizing revenues earned through this channel. Food service operators are also investing substantially in delivery infrastructure and delivery mechanisms to facilitate higher efficiency and reduce transaction costs. The new trends in the delivery business is, of course, we talked about the web-based ordering and the roles of apps, delivery-based or focused websites, and tracking of each order and using technology to use in delivery. I think social media is very important. As I said, I think this is the latest animal on the block, an animal that I think we need to tame very sooner. Otherwise, it can just go past us, and we miss a whole revolution. Social media is today an integral part of almost every Indian's life, more so for the younger generation. 90% of 18 to 31-year-old kids sleep with their mobile phones next to them and or an iPad next to them. It has become a more preferred mode of expressing views, seeking opinions, and sharing feedback, not just with the close group, but with the group or the world at large. Since the youth forms the bulk of the consumer base for our food service operators today, social media, therefore, is the choice we need to be on to connect with our consumers. It is getting easier to be seen by the consumer via social media channels than through traditional ATL and BTL activities.